On Living with Machines, it was really important to us that we spoke beyond our academic community to the wider public. For us, it was therefore really important to have an exhibition. And we wanted to do something that went beyond creating narratives from data, these sort of large-scale patterns, to telling something really tangible using artefacts that people would recognise from their communities and from the history of their region.
When we were thinking about the themes of the exhibition, and here I really also need to credit my co-curator, John McGoldrick, at Leeds Museums and Galleries, we didn't want to be too obvious about anything. We really wanted to challenge people and to add some nuance to seemingly familiar stories of the Industrial Revolution. So we didn't want to say, as machines were then or as mechanisation was then, so AI is now. But we wanted to tell lots of stories about how machines impacted people's lives, the choices that people made about how they accommodated, adapted to, resented, worked with, destroyed, refused to use, or found the positives and the negatives of these new forms of mechanisation and new machines. And partly because it was the pandemic, I used Art UK a lot to research visual objects because I wanted the exhibition to include lots of representations of machines, machines in use, machines in relation to people, so that people didn't have to bring knowledge to the exhibition about what machines in the 19th century were. We wanted to show those machines in lots of different ways. So in the end, we had cloth, we had paintings, we had literal blueprints, which I wanted to include so that parents could tell their kids, look, this is what a blueprint was at some point. We also wanted to use objects to challenge people's expectations. Some people were expecting an exhibition that only had good news about the coming of mechanisation. Others were expecting a kind of fire and brimstone message. So we chose objects like the bicycle, which ties into the project's research in terms of the bicycle industry and changing occupations around making bicycles. The bicycle was a symbol of women's emancipation. There was a kind of moral panic about what would happen when young women, young unmarried women or young girls could cycle freely. They could fly around town, they could keep up with others, they could have experiences that they previously were very limited in what they could do in, say, a day. One of the biggest challenges of the exhibition was translating the findings that we'd been coming up with in thinking about the themes of the project, the research that John and I had done about potential objects, was translating that into a physical experience so that as you move through the space, you experience the objects in different ways. You explored a timeline that moved through key moments in the Industrial Revolution. Where we could, we left space for people's reflections. So we used different coloured captions for contemporary reflections, for voices from the community, from people in Leeds and regions, from our crowdsourcing participants and volunteers, to not only have an object-led story or a kind of narrative that sort of brought the objects together, but also to punch through with different voices in the exhibition. The experience of turning research themes and ideas into a physical exhibition was fantastic. It gave me a chance to go deep on the research, to find objects to help tell those stories and find images and songs to help tell those stories. And I think the thinking that we did in the exhibition about creating space for people to think about what the coming of machines or the coming of machine learning or the coming of AI means for them is something that we really need in society. We need those forums, we need those platforms, we need those spaces for discussion, for the exchange of ideas, for people to discuss ideas with experts or to have some kind of expert input and guidance into these are some things to think about. And I hope that with the exhibition, we gave people things to think about in terms of what the coming of machines means.
This was the Living with Machines docu-series, and we just finished the last day of filming, and it's a wrap. And thank you so much, and you have made it so special.